Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Joseph Szymanski. Today, we have Mr. Cory Herschk in the studio. How you doing, man?
Mark, how are you, buddy? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. I know we had Stevie on a few episodes ago.
I fell asleep twice listening to his name. Just kidding. Love Steve. He's average.
He's average. I appreciate you reaching out, calling his interview there average with him.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, well, he first off made me listen to it.
Yeah,
It's like,
forced you.
check this
Held you
out.
at
Give me some
gunpoint.
feedback. And I was like, well, first off, were you interviewing for GQ magazine because of how you're dressed? So that's why I wore the polo today. No socks either, just like Steve. But no, he did a great job. You can talk to Steve for hours about anything.
Yeah.
So most people know him as Stick Bag Steve because he's so serious. He's as serious as a stick bag that you would carry around to a hockey rink. But nah, Steve's a great guy and pretty motivational himself. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good convo. I know we're going to have a good one here. I'm excited again to have you in the studio. And we could just kind of dive into like sort of the context and everything like that. We were chatting it up a little bit before we went live here. And, you know, when people see like your name, right, written across like an FBP podcast episode or something like that, or anytime, you know, you're out there in the community, Facebook and all that, obviously ball hockey is the big thing, right? Team Pittsburgh Gods, Team USA. And what the sport has done just in my short tenure of 10 years or so, playing from cadet, freshman, you know, now a little bit of men's and everything like that. It's grown tremendously. And I know that you have been a huge part of that, and the Gods and everybody, really everybody in Pittsburgh, New Jersey and everywhere like that. So, if we want to take it back, what's kind of like the context there? How did you get involved in that? What's the kind of story when it was kind of all up and coming throughout these years?
yeah, I was working at a Parks and Recreation Center. I was 18 years old, going to college. It was my first official job. Actually, I was like 11 and 12 and trying to make money so I can pay for that TV that was going in my bedroom and maybe the first pair of Penny Hardaway shoes, you know, because mom's like, I'm not paying $100 for a pair of shoes. And so I was working at the gym at 11 and 12 years old, keeping score for men's basketball and women's basketball. And I was just a gym rat, always around the gym, played hockey at the Southside Market House on the south side. Played soccer there, played softball there. So as the seasons turned, I just was constantly either on the field or at the gym, and it kept me out of trouble. A lot of friends that I played with, same thing, kept us out of trouble. My brothers kept us out of trouble. Mom and dad were great about it, specifically mom. Mom was phenomenal at making sure that we were where we were supposed to be at all times. But being the gym rat that I was, it became my first actual job as well, where I got paid by the city of Pittsburgh to work for City Parks and Recreation. And my brothers were still of age, 13 to 15-year-old realm, and it was City All-Star League. And those guys needed a coach. I was 16. I aged out. I said, I'll coach. You guys shouldn't miss out on playing because you don't have a coach. So I volunteered to do it at first. And then when I turned 18, City Parks put in my application, and I got hired, and then eventually started running programs out of the city. And as they got older, started doing other things in their lives, although Jared still plays. I continued to coach 4 to 6-year-olds, 7 to 9-year-olds out of the gym, took all-star teams around and played against other neighborhoods. And I had a lot of success that way with the group of kids that we were always playing with and training. And then we heard about it being on a larger scale, being at Penn Hills and being in Massachusetts and being in Niagara Falls. And we were like, wow, we think we can compete. We're doing pretty well here in the city, so why not try to go outside of the city and play? And so we did. Got waxed first couple of times, you know, playing against New Jersey, rude awakening, but you learn from those mistakes in life. You have to learn how to lose first. I really do believe that. It may be cliche, but you learn a lot from your mistakes in any aspect of life. So, and it evolved from there. We got pretty good. We recruited throughout the city, players like Steve and his brother Dan, and players from Baldwin, Ryan Nix and Joe Powell and Craig Canafarian. Those guys all wanted to kind of team up to form a city all-star team out of Team Pittsburgh instead of just being neighborhood teams almost competing against each other separate. There were like 3 separate Team Pittsburgh deck hockey organized teams. And so we kind of merged into one, had a tryout, and then from there we evolved into, you know, being a really competitive team on the national scale, being a pretty competitive team at the 16 and 19-year-old junior ranks as well, competing against Mark Madden pretty often, and couldn't get over the Wizard hump. He had coached the Wizards at the time, and it seems like that was like one of our hurdles that we just couldn't get over for quite some time. And Mark had asked me to eventually bring on some of my talented players and help him coach the junior national team. So we got a chance to go to Vancouver in 2007 as an assistant to him, They had just won the world championship gold medal in '06, so I missed out on that. They didn't want me then, but they didn't need me then. They didn't need anybody else. They had a first and only gold medal for this country. So, but then as guys from that team aged out, they saw some talent within us, and I think they saw something in me too. Maybe being able to head coach that team later on down the road, and I did. So in '08, we went to St. John's, Newfoundland, and then I took over the team and head coach while Mark became a general manager, and went to Austria in 2010. 2012, Czech Republic, and then I kind of passed that down to Steve Gregory, you mentioned earlier. Yep. He took over the team in 2014. I sat out a little bit, and then in 2015, the men's team needed some help, some new leadership. So Chris Banks gave me a phone call. He was the general manager at the time, and I told him, yeah, as long as he allows me to reach out and try to bring the country together. And there were players that didn't want to play at a certain time for a certain player or a certain organization, and we helped to end a lot of that, and we had a lot of success in 2015 with a great team in Switzerland, and lost in the finals. So won a silver, I guess is what you could say. We look at it as lost the gold in overtime, but and then ever since then, I've been kind of latched to this men's team. A few years back, probably around the 2019-ish era time, I should say, I was getting back into the juniors, and Mike Albright had asked me to come back and help out coach his team, his junior team, and we had a lot of talent, brought some discipline to it as well. But I didn't see a ton of talent throughout the Penn Hills ranks as I was going back, and not Penn Hills specifically, but at the event that we were at. It just seemed to be a lot of coaches who were volunteering their time, and a light bulb kind of struck that we've never really got to the place in this sport where we're able to offer coaching certifications, referee certifications, and we can hear, parents complaining about referees at various tournaments that you go to, and people that were really good in our sport were starting to get frustrated and leave. And so a bunch of us rallied together to create something new, bring a new life to it, call it USA Ball Hockey, and become certified, and want to become certified here in this country and do all the things that it takes to become a certified sport in this country. And so we did. We formed a nonprofit, got an organized board, elected board, some bylaws with help of Anthony Cornacchia in Massachusetts and Alessandra Glista in Massachusetts, and really tried to do our best to spread it out so that it didn't look like one or two people were doing all of the work, and that we put people who were good at various things in places to help the organization grow. And then the vision has just continued, and now we are at the place where we wanted to be 2-3 years ago, where we had the idea and vision of having a national registration process and things like that. Yeah, so that's 2017 actually. Yeah. So 2019 was our first official year going into the nonprofit, but I think 2017 is when we started getting the ball rolling.
So a lot to unpack there. It's been obviously quite a ride, and I would ask, so you've created all of this stuff. There's been so much growth of the game, and Grow the Game is now becoming like a household community name. But it's truly been remarkable. Me as somebody who's just like a player, right? And you behind the scenes, like along with all the other names that you've mentioned, there's been so much work that has gone into this. Maybe just like what's that even like in a sense to be coaching, and we'll get into a little bit more of it. But obviously, to this point, you guys are kind of, very much the founders of this sport in a sense. I know it's been going on for a while. I know it's been played, but the idea of ball hockey, like almost being, in my mind, separate from ice hockey, from roller hockey, that is kind of what you guys are doing. I mean, it's your own sport. It's similar in a lot of ways, but it's always been in the shadow of those other ones, I would say. And it's cool for somebody like me, again, because I'm part of this community. And it's always like this. I think the stereotypical thing is like, oh, I play hockey. Oh, you play ice? No, I play ball hockey. But it's no different. Like it's like a cousin. It's so. I mean, my thought is just like, what's that been like? I mean, how has that been? How has that been to balance everything? How has that been like? What is the actual process of going through all those things? I mean, we don't need to go into the details of forming nonprofits and things, but what was almost some more of the motivation and just kind of what has that done to you? What are like the emotions that have you've gone through throughout the years? Have you ever sit down and think about that? Like that you're actually making a big change here?
Yeah, I do, and I appreciate you saying one of the founders, but it goes way back. There have been people who've talked about doing this work for years, and it just didn't get done. So I guess it could take a crazy psycho like myself who's going to spend X amount of hours at night when the family goes to bed, because I don't want to lose family time. And, excuse me, but I asked my wife when we started this, I said, do you mind? I won't I'll do my best not to lose any more family time than we already do when we travel for tournaments, whether it be a weekend tournament with the Gods or
Right.
whether it be a week-long tournament or 2-week-long tournament with the U.S. national team. And she's the best. She
Yeah.
said, go for it. And one of the goals was to organize the country to where politics weren't involved anymore, and you were doing it for the players, where you were doing it for the coaches, you were doing it for the referees, you were doing it to make the parents' lives easier, and justice for the sport, to really end any kind of disputes that may have occurred by the higher powers that ran things in the past, any negativity, and try to bring more positivity to it. Because we saw the sport, in my opinion, I was worried. I thought it was going in the wrong direction for a minute. And so we just started communicating. And I've always said that I think, like anything in life, whether it be me teaching, working with the students, working with the parents that I work with, working with my staff, home life in general, you have to communicate. And I feel like we didn't do a good enough job prior to maybe 2017 of that. And we relied on maybe 1 or 2 people to do all the work, and they got burned out. But to have maybe someone who could take a hashtag Grow the Game Day and do a little tour around like we did with the Gods, and go to Iowa and go visit people in Montreal and see what the game's like, and network out, and then bring some of those resources in and say, look, we could do this. There are people that play all over, and I think everyone wants the same exact vision, has the same exact vision. So just using some of that leadership, and I guess the name that we've made for ourselves, the credibility that we've made, to use it for the better of the good. I've got no strings attached to it. I don't have my son just started playing. He's 5. He can care less about it. Right. We have him playing just literally to be around other kids and listen to other adults, not name mom and dad.
Right.
And there's no money involved in it for me. Volunteer like anybody else was working with USA Ball Hockey. So that was one. The grassroots of it, needing to create a platform where the volunteers who we need, the parents who we need, actually get educated like they do in USA Hockey, like they do in Hockey Canada, and be able to educate them on how to teach the game. And then on the other side of it is to bring some, I want to say, structure to the national teams across the board. So that would be side number 2, where there's accountability held for the national teams. It's not every man or woman for themselves. Each GM got the chance to do whatever they wanted to do, and there's actually some structure and organization. And some GMs back a few years ago will be able to help work with one another, but really have a standard of what your expectation is for all of your process, leading up to hiring, leading up to selecting the teams, and making sure that the process isn't just one person doing a lot of the work, but it's a team effort, and who's overseeing that, who's holding a GM accountable. So we wanted to bring that. And then the third entity is USA Ball Hockey wants to not just be a recognized sport, but we want ball hockey to get to the Olympics. And so to do that, you have to get recognized here in this country first. And so all the hours that goes into the paperwork, the nonprofit behind the scenes, I'm the crazy one who stays up late at night and maybe goes to bed at 2, 3 a.m. a lot of nights, and have to wake up and give my daughter her seizure medicine at 6:30, and then go about the day if I don't get a chance to sleep in a couple extra hours. But it takes that kind of passion to say, look, I want to make sure that the kids in the future of this game have it better than what we had it, and we had it pretty good, But we want this to be taken seriously. We want the ice hockey world to look at it and say, well, look, there's players that play up in Montreal who are on NHL rosters that play this sport. There's players out in Iowa who are on minor league hockey teams and that own, rinks in this sport. Why is that? And because it's a great game. And so we have to get the message out. And we never had a platform to do it. And now, like you had mentioned earlier when we were talking, with the way podcasting is and the way marketing is through social media, it's a good way to send the message out. And then we've got people like myself who are diehards. Dan Colwell, who has, he works for the NHL Network. He plays our game, plays for Phoenixville Graphics. He wants to help spread the word, bring it to the NHL Network, and you can't get much bigger of a stage than putting it on national TV. So you've got a lot of people who have a lot of talent and are able to use their own platform to help USA Ball Hockey and help the sport itself grow.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. I mean, just from even, again, chatting before we went live and, just the background there, I think there's a lot of people that'll listen to this, and myself included, from this conversation, and realize that, they know you as God's head coach. They know you as Team USA head coach, but, and they've heard of USA Ball Hockey, but I think this is really important to kind of put it out there that, one, this stuff doesn't just get done overnight. It takes a long time, a lot of energy, like you mentioned, almost sleepless nights and all that sort of stuff. And, I just want to, echo probably a lot of the ball hockey community. We appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody else for all the time and energy you're spending to get our game into the Olympics, hopefully one day.
Yeah.
And one thing that I kind of thought about as you were going on there is this idea of, so we're in the United States and we're trying to build this community up. We're trying to build the whole sport up in general. We have, pockets, I would kind of say, from what I know, like, Pittsburgh, Iowa, Massachusetts. I know, like, we'll get into it, but like the NBHL is a good signifier of that. Different cities, different, in different states and stuff like that. Was there anything that, throughout this process you guys were able to, because you're laying the groundwork, but there are, from what I understand, and I think from my conversation with Steve and maybe other members of the community, I've never traveled overseas to play, but obviously you guys have a ton. It's different over there, right? Like, was there anything that you were able to, like, kind of say, okay, maybe like, different countries like, I guess, Finland, Slovakia, are they doing certain things with ball hockey that you were able to kind of pull and say, okay, this is maybe what we should do with the community as far as like a strategy or a way to make it bigger? I know there's platforms and stuff like that. I'm kind of more saying, like, are they following in those footsteps? Are they ahead of us? Are they, is it a group, almost a global effort to get into the Olympics? Because if it was going to be an Olympics, like, I mean, obviously we have the national tournament, right? But, how does that all kind of play?
So we are about 20, 25 years behind as far as structurally organizing, producing youth clinics, providing a national rule book. We've had rule books for deck hockey, center line offsides, right? But never a floating blue line ball hockey rule book, which is where the game has really emerged to. And so for that, we are behind when it comes to organizing our country. They've also got government support where there's funds that come through. If you win a gold medal in Slovakia, you get a chance to meet the president of your country. So it's already been recognized, and we have to use what they've done as a model for us to organize here. And it really does come with camaraderie. It comes with support from what we're able to provide for rinks and what rinks are able to do for their coaches, players, and referees. Because essentially, we want to be able to provide insurance. We want to be able to provide a governing set of rules. We want to be able to provide dispute resolution and certifications for coaches and referees. And then in turn, rinks or leagues are asking, well, what do we do? And just make sure that your players get registered. Make sure your coaches and your referees get certified and registered. And that's what is going on in other countries. So I think that it's going to take, like, the Power 5 countries who have seemed to grab a pretty good pulse on this. Us, I think we're kind of rolling right now, and then Czech, Slovaks, Canada, Switzerland, and be able to branch off and support those smaller groups that they play in Poland, right? They play in Morocco. How can we show what we've done here to those countries so that we can get closer to the Olympics? Because you need 40 countries to be able to even approach gates in the Olympics. You can petition when you get 20. And so we're still a good ways away. I think we're at 11 or 12 right now, and U.S. isn't one of them yet. We have to be a nonprofit for 5 years. But if we continue to do what we're doing, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, I don't think it should be an issue. Handball and badminton and dance and, a lot of those sports, frisbee golf, those sports are getting recognized. So as long as we continue to check the boxes, then I think we will be able to too. And being able to go out and help those other countries as well by saying, hey, listen, this is what you need to accomplish, and this is how we've done it. So hopefully we can be a model for you, and how can we help you as a Poland or even Finland is just now getting recognized as well. And that was just a group of ice hockey players who picked up the stick and ball one day and decided to play and fell in love with it, like most ice hockey players do, if they like to run.
Yeah,
and the Euros like to run because football, European football's huge, right?
Yeah.
Soccer's huge.
Yeah, it's definitely different, but it's super interesting to kind of hear the thing there, because that's something in my life. I think a lot of us do that as well, is like when somebody, or in this case, like another entity, another country is further ahead of you, it's always fun to kind of like see, like, well, how can we take what they did, implement it faster and things like that, and just like learn from other people. It's a huge thing. It's a huge point of the podcast here, the brand Fueled by Progress and everything. So that is super cool. How do you think, if we kind of like come back to the U.S., we kind of talk about everything that's kind of transpired, I would say, over this very strange and anomaly of a year, 2020. I know it was supposed to be the big, like unveiling and the big inaugural year for the NBHL. Talk about how that kind of plays in there and what the idea was there. So we have USA Ball Hockey. What is like NBHL obviously is, I would assume like the NHL of ball hockey, which is awesome for so many people I know that are in the community, because everybody has a chance to play on like a bigger stage. We had the summer showcase. So what was the idea there, and what kind of like, any part of that? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, well, I think branding is a huge deal. Cleaning up the sport and branding it is for me what caught my attention. Anthony San Rocco, TJ Jonas, and and Anthony's brother Gianni, they did a great job of running the Evesham Ball Hockey League in New Jersey. And when you go around Pittsburgh's, with the Penguins being as good as they've been for years, and having players like Mario and Sid, and how little kids want to grow up and be like them and dress up like them for Halloween, like I did when I was a kid. I think it makes it easier in neighborhoods or in communities like ours here in Pittsburgh. And so they were able to put money back into communities, whether it be Sticks and Hands with Street Pals programs, or by building rinks. But when it gets to the adult level, it kind of lacks off a little bit. I think you put a team in, you're hoping 6 guys show up, so you get at least one sub. What are we wearing, white or blue? Doesn't matter. Just bring white and blue. We'll figure it out when we get there, right? Helmets, you need helmets, But again, that's also some of the things that deter others from playing and signing up. It becomes maybe even you hear this in ice hockey too, adult ice hockey, maybe like a beer league.
Yeah.
So we wanted to clean that up, and I think Evesham was the group that did it first in South Jersey with San Rocco and those guys. And they were putting graphics and box scores out there. They had all of their teams organized to where they chose a logo, a city name, and a nickname. They had matching shorts. They had, they were going to require helmets the following season, just to clean that up a little bit, but also using social media, not just a website, but social media to really promote it and had a brand and brand it, like you talked about earlier.
Certainly.
And because I thought they did a good job, a lot of people thought the same thing, and they caught everybody, including mine's attention. And we just had a conversation on the phone one day about it, and I said we could do that in Pittsburgh, like no doubt about it. And I think we could branch out to go to Chicago and in DC as well. We have connections. And maybe we can partner up. We could use the USA Ball Hockey Rulebook for it, get referee certified, and do a few things different. And they did. They ran with it. That was their goal from the beginning, was to catch the attention of the country, and they did that. And so we were just able to help with some networking, create directors in each of those regions, Massachusetts. Everyone's been just looking for high quality league play, where a lot of our guys specifically can maybe even play with one another, because that just doesn't happen here. And some of the 14 rinks that have been put up, whether it be by the Penguins or by other owners that have sprung up rinks. And so it was something that was supposed to be launched in April. And since COVID has hit, obviously there was disappointment because we couldn't officially launch that first season. But with that has come also excitement. Sometimes you just need a break from certain things. I really do believe that in life, and I'm not saying that. We all needed to take a step back in a way, because we live a fast-paced life. So we got a lot of family time in since COVID has struck, at least in my household, and with me having to teach from home and not coming home at 7 o'clock at night or 6:30 at night, being able to walk right downstairs as soon as 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock hits, and spend more time with family. I think that it also got us away from hockey for a little bit, because you can burn out. We've traveled every year for several. And we haven't traveled yet. We've yet to travel this year. We're hoping to go away just as the gods here in a couple weeks. But I think that leagues also, are itching to start back up. So I think, even though it's been canceled, we've now seen Texas get involved. So it's about time to have a group of people in Texas reach out to us and want to participate. So they're going to have an event second weekend of December, and then I'll kind of launch them as a division. San Rocco himself has moved out to Seattle. He's now a nurse, so he's left New Jersey. He's a traveling nurse in Seattle, and he wants to run ball hockey leagues for the rest of his life. He's hoping to be able to do that. So with us at USA Ball Hockey and a group of phenomenal people at Power Play Project, we've created an alliance there to build rinks, and so they're going to work on building rinks out in Seattle. And so we'll have a Northwest division with them in Portland. And so it's given us time. Raleigh, North Carolina wants to get involved, and since then a Division II has also come up. So there'll be a D2 or a B division. And so, I think the way we've continuously marketed it, the NBHL guys have continuously marketed it and pumped out information and networked. We've been able to even grow it, even though we didn't have a first year of it, just because of how structured and organized, their blueprint is for success of a league.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I think that provides a tremendous backstory, because to to the lay person of like, the hockey community, I think they were just like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. And the idea of the NBHL is awesome, right? I mean, it's like you feel like you're an NHL player in this sport because that's effectively what you guys are trying to create. And I think that it's really cool how you've been able to merge not just different geographies, but even like you said, so Project Power Play, that's the Pens, right?
And Power Play Project. No,
Yeah.
it's actually not the Penguins. The Penguins actually did something called Penguin Power Project.
Oh yeah, it was the rinks.
Power
Yeah,
Play. It
yeah.
was the rinks. Yeah. And Power Play Project is another group of people. There's a guy, Kelly Kay. He's out in Beverly Hills, California. He works with Craig Stanton, who's from New York, and helps to run. He's one of the directors for the Hockey in Harlem program, Ice Hockey in Harlem program, and has been for years, and he educates in Harlem. Those guys had the same goal we did, and that's to bring the sport of ball hockey to areas that don't have it, but want it. And one of the tricks for them has always been to find someone to run those rinks. And this is where we, and to program it. They can use their resources to find investors to build, and all of the incredible intangibles that come with, their brands of what they do for a living and the networks of people that they've communicated with throughout their lives to help make this happen. In Arizona, they've built rinks. They built one in Long Island, and it's beautiful. The Deck Superstars rink in Long Island is gorgeous. And so when we're able to say to people who come to us, I want to build a program. I've got a tennis court. How do I build a program? We're able to say, okay, these are the people you need to talk to. That's why we signed up to be their partners, because they can help to bring the rink, and then we can help to bring the programming and the guidance.
Is almost just a random tidbit of this is one of like the goals, for instance, to have like USA Ball Hockey, and I guess in conjunction with that, the NBHL be kind of like the source of ball hockey in the country. Like just a small thing is, I think actually we haven't talked about it because it's more of, I guess, an entity involved, but Cool Hockey Events obviously runs some very huge tournaments. Holiday Bash, we already mentioned, is going to be one of them. I think on their site, they have a resource where you can see all the different rinks, places that you can play at. I think that is definitely in Pittsburgh gotten tremendously better, because now whether it's the Pens or whether, again, private owners, like you said, have brought all these different rinks and different opportunities and leagues. Do you think that that's one of the things where you want to make as USA Ball Hockey, in conjunction with all the other things you're doing, just like have it as a resource to show where people can access the sport? Is there anything specific you guys are doing there?
Yeah, so I would say April, the NHL actually reached out to us, and we did a conference call with some people in California, Calgary, and Edmonton, and just to break the ice and start to talk about what our goals are and listen to what the NHL's goals are, to work with the ball hockey community. It was neat just to get on the phone and chat about it, because they have a need. They want to see numbers of kids playing hockey grow, and they feel themselves that they've plateaued in the last 10, 15, 20 years, because it is the same demographic of kid playing hockey. Right. The kid that can afford the ice plays the ice, right? So for ball hockey, it's more affordable. There's more help out there. And so they want to tap into what we do, as well as talk to Canada and the CBHA and see how we can partner up down the road after we begin to establish a relationship. And so one of the things they asked us was, what can we do right away? And Alessandra Glista's response was, how about put maybe a link for USA Ball Hockey on your website, NHL.com. Players want to play the sport. Yeah, sure, great advertising. It's great. Anything we do, if you can advertise it, it'd be amazing. But just putting our link on there. And then from there, a person can go, click on it, and find out where ball hockey's played in their area. So we're doing something very similar. We're such good friends with the people at Cool Hockey Events. JJ and Jason do a great job. I'm not so sure how up to date. I'm pretty sure it's up to date, but the rinks are an idea we want to have as well. We want to have a map. So we're working on that now.
Something like that, yeah.
So you just hover over the state, and then a drop-down box appears telling you exactly, where ball hockey's played in that state. And then you can click on a link, and it takes you to their Facebook page, or it takes you to their website, so that you can go ahead and connect. And we have people reaching out to our email account, info@usaballhockey.com. Our secretary sends us information all the time, Jane Albright. She'll send us information, or questions rather, of someone who's reaching out saying, hey, how do I become sanctioned? Or how do I build a rink? Or where can I play? It's happening all the time, and I don't know if anyone really knew where to go.
Right.
A couple years ago,
Yeah.
and now they do, and we can take the time to direct them and put them in the right spot.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, the information could be there, and it's just like even just trying to get people to the right spot. So that's awesome. I'm glad that concept exists, because I think just like I'm just envisioning like a map of the U.S. and like all these different pins on there where you can see that. That's incredible, because again, they pop these rinks up, especially the Pens sometimes, like, oh, there's a rink here. That's fantastic. So, and the other like kind of again with the NBHL and everything that's going on, I know like how you mentioned with the NHL, there was a Grow the Game event, right? And like, so talk about that. I think you guys are trying to do that again. Like, what was like, you actually had NHL Network coverage, right?
Yeah.
So like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was one of my favorite days of being involved in the sport for the 20 plus years I've been involved in it. I thought it was so cool to be able to see kids be interviewed at Team Pittsburgh's rink and be on national television, and so that was really neat. The idea of Grow the Game Day was a part of the tour. We had done 3-on-3. We went out to Iowa for 3-on-3. We went out to Montreal for 3-on-3. And so we wanted to have our own event here at the club championships. And one thing we thought about doing right away was to raise some money, because we didn't want the expense for teams to be much more than $1,000. And a venue, because we don't own a venue, could be pretty expensive. And RMU charges what RMU does. And so we were happy to be able to work with Robert Morris and get a cost that was more affordable for us. But we also wanted to keep costs down, so people came. And we were able to bring an atmosphere like the one at the World Championships, where there's a DJ on hand, there's fan zone, there are a lot of people there, there's food trucks. That we wanted to bring that atmosphere, because people don't get a chance to travel overseas to see what an ISBHF international event is like. When you go to Switzerland, when we went to Switzerland in 2015 and Czech in 2017, there are bands playing outside, and there's a beer garden, and there's little miniature rinks that the kids are playing at. So we wanted to try to bring that to our sport here in the country, and to be able to do that costs some money. So the idea of a Grow the Game Day was twofold. We wanted to bring the 3-on-3, kind of culminate that tour that we just did, as well as try to raise money for an event, and it wound up going to the game itself. We didn't raise money for the event. We wound up having an NHL player there, Brian Rust. He had a price tag that came with it, and that's fine. He has a brand he has to take care of as well, and so we were able to afford to have an NHL superstar come to the rink and do a partial clinic with us. But as far as the NHL Network goes, they have a show called Ice Time on Saturdays. It's geared towards kids. And Dan Colwell, who's a friend of ours I mentioned earlier, he's interim marketing director right now with us. He said, listen, I think we have a spot. We can get maybe a 6, 7, 8 minute segment. We can send some cameras down. I'll help to produce it. And we can get, not just highlights of our 2019 games on or interviews between Johnny Ruiz and Hildreth, Andrew Hildreth, or Johnny Ruiz and Bobby Hauser, but we can do a different entity and bring it about the kids and bring it about the growth of the game. So that's kind of how that evolved as a one-day event. We wanted to culminate the 3-on-3 tour that we did, bring a little 3-on-3 action to our area. And then when we found out we can get an NHL player, when we found out we can get an NHL Network, it became a spectacle. And we do want to have another one. We want to have several of them. We were supposed to have one November 7th, and that was canceled in Long Island at that Deck Superstar rink I had mentioned earlier. That one was going to be even bigger, I think. We had the group that owns the Empower Play Project they have so many connections to alumni at the NHL with the Rangers and Islanders. So we were going to have them involved. Hockey in Harlem was going to be involved. Stupid COVID. But we're planning on doing it again in the springtime, where we would have a 3-on-3 tournament. Kids get to register. Teams get broken up evenly. And players who have played for our national teams, both men and women, get a chance to referee those games, get a chance to coach those kids, to give back to the community. We would do we'd have an NHL player help us out to do a skills clinic that I would help to run. And then we were going to have a 5-on-5 game between some of our national team U20s and U20 girls and U16 boys, mix it in with the Hockey in Harlem kids to get some of the Ice Hockey in Harlem kids to the deck, and have some alumni from the Rangers and Islanders coach those games. I know Adam Graves' name was thrown around. So that was the idea, and then you would finish off the event. And we had thought at one point that maybe the NHL Network wouldn't just come and do a lot of what they did, maybe take a small segment, but there was talk that potentially they could come and actually do NHL Live from the set of Grow the Game Day. It was supposed to be in between both of the the seasons that they had, the one that just wrapped up, and then the one that's going to start back up in January. So they had some dead time. They might be able to do something live, but didn't work out. New York's still pretty shut down.
Yeah.
But I think in the springtime we'll be able to swing it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, there's a positive, I would say, silver lining. I'm sure it's giving you more time. One, obviously with family and stuff, but even though you're not able to be actively out there, again, you got a lot of work that you've signed yourself up for, and again, we appreciate it. So. I know that there's definitely some positives to it, here and there if you're looking for a silver lining.
We've needed the time. I mean, even the NBHL players would register with USA Ball Hockey to participate in it, but at the time in April, insurance wasn't right, and we didn't want to just jump into insurance. We want to make sure it was perfect, and so it's given us a lot of time to get the ducks in a row. And we're there now, and we're ready for a launch in October, and we're ready to begin to prepare for 2021 and support as many programs as we can.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome that, you can be a coach of, the gods, and then also heavily involved here in Pittsburgh, but, you've expanded, your work and everybody else's work across the country and ultimately globally with these other countries and Olympics being the goal. Is there anything specific on the horizon here? Obviously, again, weird time, but as far as the future, I'm not asking you necessarily make predictions of what's going to happen, but what's your overall, we've talked about a lot of the details, but your overall plan for everything kind of moving forward? What are maybe some of the things that you can share as far as, where you think ball hockey will be in, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, well, we are working on, and hopefully 2021 will be of more success to being on the rink, give us more success being on the rink, but just as there's a National Ball Hockey League for adults, we want to expand that out to have a Women's National Ball Hockey League as well. Jen Free has helped to start and kickstart a Murraysville League for women. There are women's leagues here and there throughout the country, but we want to bring them together like we have the men's league. So have a Women's National Ball Hockey League as well, a youth one. Here locally, PACT is an organization that is made up of all the different youth organizations here that play the game, and they do a lot of local tournaments, but the field has become oversaturated, and there are now 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tournaments in one season a couple of years ago, and I think people were getting burned out because of tournament. So turn it into a league using the same structure as the National Ball Hockey League. So that's another goal. High school league is in the works. We're working on that.
Nice.
They're doing one in New Jersey right now with about, I think it's they're up to 18, close to 24 teams after starting at 14 or 16 a year ago. And I know here, Tom Treader out in Bill's Deck had a 4-team league, but we want to expand that here and again do the same thing, network out to other, and then have an overall national champion. You win your division in your city or your region, you can then qualify for an overall national championship. So that's the thought behind that. Having a girls circuit, it's something I think is crucial. A lot of girls get a chance to play co-ed. If they're talented enough, they'll make a boys travel team, which is great. But actually having something for U16 girls travel circuit. So that's in the works for 2021 as well, where there'll be 4 tournaments in the calendar year where girls will be able to represent their state as a state all-star team and then travel to 4 other places to compete. Club championships next year in May is going to be one of the hosts of it. Canadian teams will come down as well to compete against them. And so to hopefully grow there. But we're hoping to have goalie clinics throughout the country. There's talks right now that we're working with some very experienced people in the NHL who have worked with Marc-Andre Fleury in the past, currently working with Carter Hart and a guy named Shane Clifford, who's done a goalie clinic here in Pittsburgh and wants to help us do more of those. And so to really structure how we teach goalies in various regions. And so we're looking forward to that. As well as just clinics in general to have us give back throughout the country. More Grow the Game days. Anywhere we launch, we'd like to have a Grow the Game day. NHL had talked to us one day about doing Grow the Game day in every single NHL city on the exact same day, which would be amazing. And then ultimately the Olympics. I think that 2028 was originally a goal back maybe 2-3 years ago when we started this. I think 2028 Olympics were supposed to be in Los Angeles. So that was a huge goal. But we have some work to do, and now who knows when, what the Olympic structure is going to look like now that some have moved with Japan moving theirs. And so I don't know what that will look like, but ultimately within 10 years, that's definitely a goal of ours. And hopefully a ton of gold medals for the national teams.
Yeah.
Kind of touch every one of our visions and all of our dreams, where you've got the grassroots, you've got the Olympics, and then on the national teams. So hopefully we can really focus on all those in the next couple years.
Yeah. Well, that is a hell of a goal, and I know that's achievable. I mean, especially with you guys at the helm. I mean, obviously you're working hard, and again, we greatly appreciate it. So, as far as the ball hockey and everything like that, that is a lot more detail than I think most people have known. So
Or wanted to know.
Well, no, I think they do want to know, honestly. I mean, I think, again, especially myself, you see the stuff, right? But when you hear the actual details behind it, I think, truthfully, anybody that listens to that, again, myself included, there's more. There's a different level of understanding now. There's a different level of understanding, like, you and all these other pieces of the puzzle here, men and women that are involved in all this, putting all this time and effort into getting a sport to this next level, something that has never happened in this sport, and it's very difficult, and all these other things. So
Yeah, well, I think fueled by progress can also be looked at as fueled by passion too, right?
Yeah,
And for
absolutely.
me, I thrive when people tell me that we can't do something. Something's not. You can't do that. That's when I thrive.
Yeah.
I had a teacher a few years ago tell me, "You're going to burn out. I can hear you down the hallway. You're loud. You have energy all day long. One day you're going to burn out." That's all I needed,
Yeah.
because now I'm determined not to burn out. I want to be myself all the way. I want to make sure those kids don't realize I'm almost 40 years old, that they think I'm like a 20-year-old kid in front of them because of how much energy I continue to bring, because that's what's gotten us to be successful in the classroom. And then my daughter is no different. My wife and I had a doctor one time tell us that they didn't think she was going to be able to walk. She's got a form of cerebral palsy. It's called hypotonia. So her muscle development is not the same as mine and yours. It starts off with an abnormal corpus callosum, which means we have a U or a rainbow in our head that connects the left and right hemisphere. Hers has a slight indentation, throws everything out of whack, gives her vision. Her vision muscle is poor the most. Her eating and chewing muscle, her grasping muscle, all of it was. She's been going to therapy since she was 1, and so now she's able to take as many steps as she really wants to on her own. My wife and I were able to reach out to. My wife really reached out to Make-A-Wish. They came and helped to create a gym in our basement, and we work with her around the clock. Her therapist. We didn't settle. If someone came in through those doors and just didn't seem right, we asked for a new therapist right away. We just didn't settle because our kid is our passion. Both of our kids are our passion. And so, but it just took that little nudge, I think, to say she might not be able to walk one day, and us to say that's not acceptable. And now she's able to make strides on her own. She'll get excited and throw herself back. She dropped on her hands and knees the other day when I went to pick her up from school on Friday, because she got super excited to see me, and she thrust it backwards, and then but even still, now she's landing in her visual awareness to put her hands down first before just falling face first and eating dirt. That's progress. And
Absolutely,
I think that, you have to find those things to fuel you. And I know that I thrive when someone tells me sport's not going to get the Olympics. Sport's not going to have a registration. Sport's never going to have a coaching certification. Sport's not going to have a referee certification.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
Yeah. So. You are an ideal candidate for the show, Cory. I appreciate it. But and I'm glad you segued that perfectly, because that's exactly where it was going to go, to so ball hockey is a piece of your life, just like it's a piece of all of our lives too. We're not yet like NHL to that level, right? So we love ball hockey. It is our passion. We love getting better. We love being with the guys and going to tournaments here, there, and everything. But at the same time, it's not at the point yet where you could actually make that a living. It can't be like I feel like it can't be like your very first priority, just because we all have other things. Even in the NHL and stuff like that, obviously they have other things going on. But the point that I always want to, and because, again, as we talked about before we started this, I want to talk about this second level of the conversation that I think when people get you in the room, or just even me in general, talking to you on a regular day, we don't have this discussion because we're on a hockey rink or we're here or there, but we're all people, right? And again, that's one of the things that I started this for, and what we're really happy about here, and where you just alluded to is, what are some of the things I want to go into this conversation where some of the things that maybe you learned on the ball hockey rink, or you've brought into the ball hockey rink, that you've experienced in your life, because I think that is really where a ton of value lies, and I think sometimes we miss the mark on that and we don't talk about those types of things. So the first thing was actually the very first thing you brought up there. You said, people can hear you down the hall in the classroom and stuff like that. They're saying you're going to burn out and all that sort of stuff. Every time that I have, and I think most people will interact with you on the rink, if you're coaching, or if you are just having a conversation and stuff like that. You're always energetic. That's something that you've always brought. Has that always been the case, or was there a time in your life where it kind of like flipped, or like what is in almost like how do you sustain that really for a lot of people, I guess would be the question.
How? I think a lot of it has to just do with character and personality.
Mm-hmm.
I, especially when I'm with the kids, I don't have to be so serious. When I'm teaching, I always tell people when I'm working with a student teacher right now who was observed last week, and her cooperating teacher came on to observe the lesson. All of it's via Microsoft Teams, right? So we're not in person. So those current student teachers don't get what we got by being actually live with kids. So I feel bad for them. They're not getting that experience, but they'll get it eventually. And he comes on and he says, listen, we could have recorded this and passed it on the way you guys fed off each other, the energy. And that's what people always say, the energy, the energy, the energy. And I think that, as I said to both Ms. Rethage, who I was working with, and then her co-op, teaching is part entertaining. You know, if I'm not finding that inner character to bring out, then I'm going to lose the kids. That's just me. That's how I feel about it. Not everybody has to feel that way, but I feel like I'm going to lose the kids because of the day and age we live in specifically, where you want to be captivated. You want to be able to really be ingrained in what it is someone's telling you. Because when I was a kid, I can't say that I had a lot of that when it came to teaching. Mm-hmm. It was sit in these rows and do as I say. Yeah. I just used this example today of just regrouping, borrowing and carrying when you're dealing with subtraction. Teacher would just say, you borrow from the tens because I said so, but no one was able to really bring it to life. And so for me, I feel like when you're teaching, you have to be able to bring things to life and be able to use the energy and maybe some charm, some charisma, whatever you want to call it, but be able to really become a character for the kids. And so I have fun doing that. I have fun dressing up. I have fun throwing my voice. I have fun reading stories to the kids for that reason. And I have fun being wrong in front of them. Just make mistakes and let them try to figure out what it is you did wrong, because they know something's not right about what you just did. So just be different. And I wish it could be bottled up and given out, but I feel like everyone has to kind of find that inner channel within themselves and just not care what, a person thinks about you. Just go out there and you just do. You just do it. And so for me, that's always brought us the success in the classroom. As far as translating it to coaching, I go back and forth a lot of times when I'm working with my colleagues at school, and I'm leading maybe a meeting, or I am working in a small group with a small team. And I relate hockey a lot to teaching, because it's two disciplines, but at the same time, you're constantly getting to know people and having to build a rapport with people for them to trust you and for them to even want to listen to you or care about what you have to say. And so for me, I think there's a lot of respect that goes back and forth. I get down on my hands and knees and I give the kid the time of day that they might not get at home. And as far as players go, I think it's very important you build a relationship with them as well. And for me, I'm a big believer in, if you are going to have success in anything in life, you've got to really, really, really love, or at least like a lot, the person that you're working with. Or else, are you really going to care if they fall too? And so for me, I have to show the kids that I love them, and they have to, and I have to try to, find ways for them to trust me as well, so that they want to work for me, so they don't want to disappoint me. And I get that from my mom. I never wanted to disappoint my mom growing up. Still don't want to disappoint my mom. Yep. None of my brothers do either. And so I think if we can find that, whether it be the hockey players too, my wife will tell me all the time, players don't want to tell Cory they're not coming to practice today. They're just going to ignore you because they don't want to tell you. They don't want to disappoint you. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want people to feel like that. But at the same time, I get it. Yeah. Because it means they care, right? And so for me, I think by caring so much for them, I get it back in turn.
Have you, what grade do you teach?
Third grade math.
Third grade math. Have you always taught that, or have you taught other things?
I've been third grade math for a good 12 years now. When I first came out of college, I did some student teaching actually in the school that I'm currently working at, which is pretty bizarre. It was 2004. I graduated from IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and then I did some substitute teaching for about 2 or 3 years. I subbed in our building a little bit. I subbed in Arlington Middle School. a mind-blowing experience there that I had because the kids were petitioning to try to get me to come back, which was very humbling.
Wow.
And I didn't want to. Like it was that's another breed. Seventh graders and eighth graders. I wanted to be with the little ones. I was at high school. I'll never forget. I was at Shenley High School when Shenley High School was a thing. And I was there for 2 days, and the principal said this could be your classroom. It was a tech classroom, and I didn't have any tech background. Again, I wanted to teach young kids. And so I got a call the second day after working at Shenley High School, which, by the way, my roster went from 15 the first day to still 15 the next day, but there were like dozens and dozens of kids coming in and out of the room. And I'm like, I can't handle this. You're not supposed to be in this room. And this is not what I want to do. I don't want to, try to manage your schedules. I want to teach. And something that I actually knew. I didn't know tech at the time. And so I got a call from my current principal, and she said, would you like to, I was thinking about quitting at the time, and she was like, would you like to take on a permanent spot here at Dilworth? And I went right into third grade, and I was teaching ELA, English Language Arts, for a couple years, and she was a big believer, she still is a big believer, Dr. Lamar, that really good reading teachers would make even better math teachers, and there was a need for that. And so she moved me into math, and we've had a lot of success since then.
And what would you say, like, again, I'm trying to relate it all, and actually, let's take a step back first. Where do you think this motivation came from? Like, back when you were, like headed into college, for instance, was there something, was there a time where like a light bulb clicked and it's like, I want to be a teacher. I want to teach other people. Where's the motivation there?
I was a senior in high school, and I was coaching my brother's hockey team. And both Brett and Jared were playing on the same team at the time. And I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. I was playing high school basketball. I had taken some time off of playing hockey at the time. I was just coaching it. And I was really focused on high school basketball. Wasn't very good, but I played. And I didn't know what I wanted to do next year. I didn't know what I wanted to do the following year. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And my mom said, you really do get along well with our cousins. I had two younger cousins at the time. One was a baby, Tanner, and his older sister, Lindsay. My two younger cousins who aren't that much younger now. But Tanner, they made you feel good. I'd make them laugh. I'd volunteer to go over and watch them. It was just a lot of fun being with the kids all the time. And so my mom had said, you really like hanging out with Tanner and Lindsay. You really like coaching like you're doing right now. What about teaching? And she's like, you get the summers off. And I was like, that's a perk. But that wasn't really one of the things that I said, all right, listen, if teaching doesn't work out, I'm going to be a fireman. That was my thing. My uncle was a fire chief in Pittsburgh. I had a cousin who passed away in 1994, and it was a fear of mine. Even when I was little, I watched a movie theater burn down. My mom tells the story. I was walking down Carson Street. I was being pushed in a stroller down Carson Street and watched the theater burn down. And ever since then, I had a fear. I used to sleep facing the hot water tank because it had a little picture of a guy on fire. And I wanted to be the first person. If the hot water tank ever blew up, I got everybody else out. So I was like, you know what? Teaching doesn't work out. Forget it. I'll fight my fear. Like, that's what I'll do. And teaching it worked out for those reasons. I think why I liked it so much was because of that intrinsic reward of seeing kids happy to be around you, seeing people wanting to be around you. It's a contagious feeling when you just see smiles all the time. It's just so pleasant. And for many kids, they were able to escape maybe some negatives in their world, things you don't see behind the scenes. Maybe mom or dad are into drugs, or mom and dad fight, or there isn't a mom and a dad, and they're able to escape that reality for just a couple hours a day and feel safe with you. And so it was my little cousins who made me feel that way first, just the feeling of, when you walk into the room and they just run fast as they can to want to be in your arms. And it's hard not to love that feeling, to love that feeling of being accepted, especially when, growing up for me, I was self-conscious. I didn't have a lot of friends. Middle school, I couldn't find myself. I was a chunky kid who, didn't get, a ton of, not a lot of girls wanted to come up and talk to me, things like that. So you're self-conscious. And so having people make you feel good about yourself, it was just an addicting thing for me. And I still to this day love the fact that kids that are in high school, I just met with two kids that are in high school who are starting a a tutoring program on their own, and they reached out to see if we could support it. And I remember a couple years ago when they were in third grade, and they worked at Herschk, and they opened up their own little business within my shop. I have a store at the holidays, and the kids build collages, and they're able to use their money that they earn from me, their Herschk bucks that they earn from me throughout the year, and go shop off these posters. But then there's little entrepreneurs who are like, hey, can I sell popcorn? Can I sell popcorn? Can I bring in real popcorn and create my own popcorn stand like Shark Tank? I've been doing it for years. They have to present to me like, what do you mean? What are you going to charge? How are you going to? And so we have you go to Target and you've got Starbucks and you've got Pizza Hut.
Right.
We have that inside of Herschk where all these kids from fifth grade are coming down to my third grade room and they're selling something they made, whether it's like bracelets or lanyards, and they're selling it just for Herschk bucks. And so it was cool to see two kids who owned a store a few years ago with me in third grade now actually being entrepreneurs themselves and going out and trying to create a tutoring company for free.
Right.
Those are the rewards that you can't. Money can't come close to what that does for me.
Certainly. Yeah. We have to dive into that just for a minute because that seems revolutionary what you're doing there with Herschk. Okay. What is that? That sounds incredible at a third grade level, especially.
So one of the silly things we do is again motivation, right?
Right.
Kids go into a school and they're looking for why I want to be here.
Yeah.
Right? So you try to bring in as many reasons, you try to answer those reasons for them so they don't have to look any further. And so one of the things that we do is kids are able to collect, it's simple, tally marks. We put tally marks on they're working in groups. And so if they all do their homework, you just earn Herschk bucks. That's unbelievable. I can't, your whole group just did that. You see that? Oh, you didn't do your homework? That's okay. Tomorrow you can earn a Herschk buck, right? And the kids are like, I want Herschk bucks. So we had to at some point figure, what do you do with all these tally marks, right? So maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I saw a need where our curriculum didn't really hit adding and subtracting money. So you touch on adding and subtracting, but adding and subtracting money wasn't a big thing. And I'm like, well, I can mix adding and subtracting with real life, with money, right? So I would motivate them and I'd say, listen, if you guys are able to do assignment on page 72, problems 1 through 15 with your partner, you're going to show me you know how to really, really shop, and you'll be able to shop at Herschk more. And they're like, I want to shop at Herschk. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what it was at the time. And so we did. We would motivate them to work on their schoolwork, get their homework done, and show that they can add and subtract money. $5. You have $5 in your pocket. You want to buy a water bottle for $1.18. You're not allowed to use a calculator. Tell me exactly how much that would cost. How much would your change be? So, we got to close to the holidays, and we would talk about what Black Friday is, and then later on what Cyber Monday is, and right after Thanksgiving. They would come back in and there'll be collages that they helped me create with a whole lot of magazine cutting and pasting. They would create an aisle and we would hang up that aisle in Herschk. Mm-hmm. And so they'd come back after the holidays and we would collectively count all of the money that they earned throughout the beginning portion of the year. And I would say, okay, well, I'm working at Herschk Bank. If you want to come over and withdraw money, you can bring your checkbook that you've been keeping track of your money into me, and we'll show you how to withdraw money. If you want to deposit money, maybe you want to turn some of your cash in because you don't want it all in your pocket. It will give you a credit card, and so we would have little slips of paper that look like Herschk Bank credit cards. And I would put a sign on my door outside where 4th and 5th graders who had a chance to be a part of Herschk could still come back. They could put an application in, a resume in. They can come and work. God. Yeah, they come and work.
This is crazy.
So I would have people next to me working as bank tellers. Then I would have like 2 or 3 cashiers that were from 4th and 5th grade. I would just get a permission slip to their teacher, and they would be allowed to come down for a period or 2 a day, and run the cash registers and check on the kids who are shopping's work. And then from there, I'll never forget the one girl was like, can I open up a store inside? I was like, that's a great idea. And so now every year there's like 4 or 5 little mini stores that are going on inside of Herschk, and all the Herschk bucks are just flying. They thought V bucks were cool. They want Herschk bucks is what they want. So yeah, so we do it. We run it from the whole month of December.
Yeah.
And at our school, we are an arts and humanities school. So there's drumming as soon as you walk in, and there's art everywhere. And we have plays and we have musicals and things like that. And so December is always one of those you have to be more relaxed and chill. Kids are getting really excited for the holidays. So just driving home tests, driving home assignments is hard to do at that time of year. So we thought that, if we can motivate them to work on what we want them to focus on curriculum-wise, and afterwards they could shop, they're going to be busting their tail to get their work done so they can go shop. And if kids were pulled for chorus or instrumental or what have you to get ready for a play or a show, they weren't missing, tests and things like that. But they also didn't want to miss the opportunity to shop, so they would make it up later on. But, it taught a lot more than just adding and subtracting and motivation. I mean, I would have a kid, I'd have a fifth grader go, hey, see that wallet sitting over there? Because the kids would all get like wallets, they would decorate. Go take that off the desk. And so a fifth grader would walk up, take it, and bring it back, and I'd hand it. And so the kids are walking around the room and went, Mr. Herschk, I can't find my wallet. It was over here. Oh, did you leave it? Guys, did anybody see the wallet? It was sitting over there in the grocery cart. And then the kids were like, why did you leave it laying around? You're not supposed to be leaving your wallet laying around like that. So little life lessons. And I would pull it out and I would say, you don't leave your money laying around. I got it right here. So things like that add up value. I hope later on instill value down the road.
Does anybody else do this? I mean, are you like the only person kind of doing this?
I have no idea.
Because, I mean, that like you went from a third grade math teacher to somebody that's like, not to that is incredibly important in and of itself, but you've taken it so far like that. Again, I'm just kind of sitting here, just learning this about you. And it's something that I think you're doing much more for those kids than maybe they realize at this point, obviously, but like these things that they're learning, like almost entrepreneurship, now that you mentioned it, finance skills, again, adding, counting, like kind of like even the smaller things that you don't realize that like, oh, well, maybe I have $5 and I could buy one thing or I could buy two things that might be like useful, like however you're kind of doing it. Like that is just incredible. And I hope that we can bring a little bit more awareness to that type of stuff, because I appreciate the effort. That is, I don't know, I'm just taken aback by the whole schema there. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it like today, Isabel, who I was on a call with, myself, two other teachers, and then these two high school girls, they're presenting to us what their idea is and how they want to create this chapter of tutoring out of Kappa High School, like Alderdice has and Winchester Thurston has, and they want to team up with this group. Hershmore had come up in our conversation, and she was like, "That was one of my favorite moments of third grade." And we tell the kids all the time when they're getting ready to leave or when they're misbehaving, like, what legacy do you want to leave? What do you want to be known for when you're gone? You could be. I'm a human being, and I tell the kids straight up, I'm a human. So if you're gonna drive me crazy every single day, whether it's because you want my attention or not, because let's be honest, sometimes you're just doing it because you're craving attention. That's how you're finding. That's how you're channeling it. I'm still a human. I don't have to like you. I know that's hard for you to understand as an 8 and 9-year-old, but I don't have to, because if you're doing things that you don't want people to do to you, you're not going to like them, right? I'm a human. So if I'm in a grocery store one day and you're 15, 16 years old, do you want me to go the other direction? Because this kind of thing you're doing right now is going to make me want to avoid you, right? Mm-hmm. And so you talk about what kind of legacy you want to leave. And for me, I do want to have things remembered in the most positive type of ways. And I'm competitive, right? So there's this thing that my wife, it drives her crazy because I am competitive. I want to be the person that they remember when they leave Dilworth and they do come back and they give me that, Mr. Herschk, it's such a addicting feeling. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if I can do little things like this, or dress up as Herschkiles, who's my cousin from Greece, when we're teaching geometry, I think that those are things the kids will remember.
I went to the wrong school. Yeah, I wish. That's incredible to be a part of, man. I hope that, I hope that you can continue to do that for as long as it continues to last. I mean, that is. I don't know. I'm taken aback by it, like I said, because I don't see that out of many other places. I know that I didn't really have that when I was growing up. And then I think really what happens there is if you don't have those types of things, then you have to find it for yourself almost. Now, we live in a day and age where luckily you can just type in anything you really want to know, and you can see like other people's perspectives and stuff like that, which is, much credit goes to all the YouTuber, content creators that I've never probably going to actually meet. But, when you can have that like actually in person, I think it's incredibly and totally different.
Yeah, a lot of it you have to be creative.
Yeah.
And if you put in the energy to take your idea and bring it to life, then I think you'll have not only fun, but hopefully the success that I've been lucky enough to be a part of. And that's when your passion and your drive can all come out. But been lucky enough to have some creative ideas, and the kids accept them, which is really what it comes down to, because they don't have to accept the crazy ideas, but they do.
Right. How do you think that with teaching and everything like that, obviously you've learned a ton through just like almost trial and error, I'm sure, with different things. Was there anything throughout your teaching career, like when you came up with this idea of Herschk, for instance, like where do you find inspiration or influence from certain things? Do you read content? Do you watch content like on how to be things, or do you just kind of come up with this stuff?
I don't have time to read. I wish I did.
I don't either. I don't read.
I just don't. I've never been a reader.
Yeah.
And watching, it's an idea that just pops to. It just comes to me. I wish I could explain it. I remember when Herschk started, for example, it's called a student reference book, SRB. And on page 65 in the SRB, there was a poster of a vending machine. And the kids had a list of questions, and they had to basically go shopping off of the vending machine. So if you buy pretzels and a bag of potato chips, how much will it cost? And I just remember thinking to myself, God, we could either sit here in this desk and look off this, or we can actually bring it to life. Yeah. And so for me, that's where the creative juices come from. So yeah, I think there's always an inspiration. I couldn't really tell you what each of my antics are inspired by. But if I sat back and I thought about it, it would probably be neat to stem back to the root of some of the psychotic ways of myself in teaching.
I gotcha.
We do it, an anti-bully crew is another one. We run an anti-bully crew at our school where we get on stage and we perform for the kids, the entire student body, once a month. And, the inspiration was just because I didn't like getting picked on as a kid. And as a teacher, the majority of our free time, if you would call it that, our preparation or our lunch, goes a lot into being able to hear a kid's story and being able to figure out why there's an issue between two kids or three kids. And so for years, not just of me getting bullied growing up, but listening to kids who were getting bullied, we're like, look, let's nip this in the butt. Let's bring a show. Let's bring things that really happen in the kids' worlds, whether it be on the bus or in the bathroom. Like we brought a toilet on stage one day, and the kids are like, "Oh, there's a toilet," and they love it. And so let's act out. Let's just be knuckleheads. Let's be the bad kids. Let's be the good kid who is trying to put things at ease. Let's be the confused kid, and let's bring some scenarios to the stage and try to make our lives easier, because we feel like if we can show that this isn't what, if we're considered the cool teachers or the cool kids, and then all the kids are like, oh, if Mr. Herschk doesn't like that idea, or if Mr. Clegg or Mr. Longaboy doesn't like it, Mr. Wilkerson doesn't like it, Mr. Bradley doesn't like it, Miss Wilson doesn't like it, Mr. Citero doesn't like it, we shouldn't do it. Right. And so if we can use our positivity, our motivation, and our platform for the better, then maybe kids will think twice about bullying. But also for those kids who are still going to be mean and go out there and do the bullying, now we can show the other kids how to handle it, because that's part of the show, right? It is trying to teach kids how to handle it. So yeah, there's a lot that goes in, but I think inspiration, there's something along the lines that always inspires, whether it's from my past or I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I don't want you to sit in this desk and do that bookwork. I'd rather you get out of your seat and let's bring it to life. Right. I don't want you to deal with some of the negativity that I dealt with from bullying because my nose was too big or because I was too chunky. And so let's see if we can help with that. And as long as we try, we're doing our job.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I think it sounds like you're doing a great job. Very noble cause and providing a ton of value from what I can hear. So, awesome stuff there. I think really here, what we've covered so far is we have ball hockey, which seems like obviously a large portion of your life. And then you have education, your job, teaching the youth of our community here, another huge portion. And I think the third thing, and there might be obviously more, but as far as like big buckets would be kind of your family, right? And we've touched on it a little bit. And the idea now that, just from everything you've laid out, you're going to sleep late with the trying to get USA ball hockey and the whole sport moved forward in a positive direction towards Olympics and everything like that. During the day, especially now it's kind of crazy, but generally you're in the classroom, you're running Herschk, you're doing all this stuff. There's some time in there in between, in the mornings, stuff like that. family time, weekends, here and there. How do you balance that? Like, what are some of the things that, these very real concepts that I think tend to get overlooked is like we're all so busy. You mentioned it earlier. We live this fast paced life. COVID has been positive in a sense of like slowing down, pumping the brakes a little bit, kind of resetting on some of that stuff. What have you been implementing with your family, from you to them, with all of these things that you have going on? And obviously your family has things going on too, your wife, your kids, like in different events and stuff. What are some of the things there that, like, because that's the foundation ultimately, right? If that isn't taken care of at home, then everything else is going to be kind of like crazy. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some?
My wife's an angel. I've seen people who get so wrapped up in their career and who get wrapped up in their hobby that they do divorce or they go separate ways, right? I think I had a negative experience prior to marrying my wife. I was engaged prior to, but I was with somebody for, I think it was like 12 or 13 years from the time we were in 7th and 8th grade through high school, through our college years. I was engaged. And I think at that point, I did take things for granted. And because I took this is how life's just going to be, let's just deal with it, then I just did whatever I really wanted to when it came to hockey and work. And I didn't understand balance at the time. And then comes, at the time, heartbreak, which turned into a blessing, right? But at the time, you're going through the grieving process of heartbreak, and you're not going to get mad at, we called off the wedding, and that's embarrassing. You have to tell people. So regardless of what happened, it was really more of going separate ways and not really finding each other. And then so from there, it dawned on me, well, maybe a lot of that was my fault. Maybe a lot of it was because I was too wrapped up in both teaching, maybe in hockey as well, and that was something I heard a lot. And I don't want that to happen now. So I think it is open communication, making sure you ask before you do, although my wife will probably tell you I don't always ask, I do. But making sure that she's okay with it. When we started to date, we had already known each other from childhood. Jessica was my childhood crush. I was in 3rd grade and I was in love with her, and she was in 4th. She was rocking the cradle, but she was in 4th. And so, but I loved her. And then my really good friend, I guess he was a best friend at the time you could call throughout my early high school days, was dating her sister, my current sister-in-law. And so I was just a leech. I was always with him. I was going to the house. Jessica didn't know at the time, but I was just madly in love with her. I just wanted to be around her.
Yeah.
And I just told her, I just wrote this in her birthday card last Friday. I remember when, 25 years ago, I gave you a birthday card, and it had $5 inside. She kissed me on the cheek. She's like, you're just like a brother to me. I was like, no, crushed, right? Just crushed. And then, I went a different way, and she went a different way. And then when I became single, she also became single at the time. We saw each other out one night and just hit it off. And ever since then, it's evolved into something that, feels like it was meant to be. I knew her dad really well, and her dad had passed away from a heart attack, and that was difficult. It's still difficult for her. But being is that she's with someone now that knew him, we could talk, we could have conversations about it. We could be around the same group of friends that we grew up with, which we still keep close to us. A lot of friends that we grew up with, we still talk to. And it made it easier for both of us. And she would travel to do a lot of the hockey. She would still be traveling with me for hockey. She went to the Czech Republic with me in 2012. And so she loved it. But having kids has been what changed things. Because we don't have kids that you can just take out into public. My son's 5, and he has a form of autism. Autism is a huge spectrum. But he is adapting. He's just making incredible strides. He's now going to preschool. He went today for this is his 2nd week. And just getting great reports from his teacher because of who he's becoming. He wasn't potty trained until he was late 4, almost 5, back in March. Another silver lining of COVID, where we were able to spend more time getting him trained. He started using his words. He wasn't talking, 2nd, 3rd, 4th year of his life. He wasn't talking a lot. March, he started to use his vocabulary. And then Gianna being, the unique person she is, it does take a lot of time, but I think you want to talk about balance. It's like we have to make sure that we spend quality time together. I don't sleep with my wife. My wife sleeps with my son in bed, and a lot of that stems from Gianna. When Gianna was laying by our side, and she was just over 1 year old, going on 2, she had a seizure, and I was leaving for work, and something made me stop and go pay the bills in the morning. And I never do that, right? So I stopped dead in my tracks. I go back to pay the bills. and I hear Jess yelling Gianna's name, Gianna, Gianna, Gianna. So I bolted up the steps. I'm skipping steps running up there. And Gianna's stiff as a board, just straight. And she's looking straight up in the air, and she's starting to shake a little bit. And Jess was pregnant with Caden at the time. And I took Gianna and put her down on the ground, turned her on her side. At the time, I thought that was like the thing you did with seizures. So there was a thought that they would roll their tongues back and swallow the tongue. And we didn't want that to happen, right? And she started turning blue. I had to give her mouth to mouth. And so super, super scary time. And then, and ever since then, you know, I now lay next to Gianna so we can keep an eye on her. And Jess lays next to Caden. Caden, knock on wood, has never had a seizure. But it's that fear that you're not going to be there to help. And sometimes as we've grown to learn seizures, people tend to snap out of it anyway. More often than not, you don't have to perform a rescue medicine for them. But that fear that a mom would have of her other baby, you know, not being watched at the time is why Caden does sleep with her at night. And so, you know, we don't have our traditional nighttime settings, but yet we get the kids together in the bath. I love to do that. She loves to do that with me. We have dinner together every night that we possibly can. We make sure that we sit on the couch at least a couple of times a week to put all technology aside and watch a show. The Bachelorette is what we're watching right now, right? So you make that time and you try to have a date night once or twice a month. Usually it's once because it's hard to get a babysitter that can handle Gianna. Caden's usually easier, but with Gianna having to change her diaper and things like that, it's harder to find someone that can be strong enough to keep her not just entertained, but also to be able to maneuver her throughout the house. So try to do that once a month, so that keeps the balance. And this is one of those rare occasions where I was done working today at 4, and I left right away to go do something else for myself. And we try not to have that too often, but when we do, like if I go away for 2 or 3 hours, she gets her time too. She gets to go and watch the Steeler games. Jess is a huge Steeler fan, so if I drop her off on a Sunday to watch the game with her cousins or some friends, she gets that balance. And I feel like as long as we can continue to do that, then I think that, you know, that's where you do find that healthy relationship continue to grow, because there are plenty of tough times when you're a parent. Maybe there's a family dynamic that brings on some trouble for you, where there could be grapples. I've heard some families where there's, you know, parents and grandparents that just don't see eye to eye with the way you're raising them. We're not in that situation, but I think that making sure you make time for each other and you don't let your hobbies and your career hog up everything. You try to keep you know, the flame lit, and we do a solid job of that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, again, I want to echo that, you know, just, you know, sitting here listening to that, it's definitely humanized. That's what these conversations, I think, tend to do. I mean, they humanize the conversation that we're having, the person sitting across from me. You know, and I truly appreciate you like sharing all that, because that is real stuff. Like you have a very full plate. You know, you're doing everything you can in your life to make sure that you're fulfilled, your family's fulfilled, you know, the ball hockey community's fulfilled, your students at Dilworth are doing everything. So, you know, props, man, like huge props for everything that you have going on. You know, and I appreciate, again, taking the time to come on the show here, because I know that you, again, are just working hard, and I appreciate it. I always love people that are obviously fueled by progress and always trying to make things happen. So, you know, I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for doing what you do. You make me smile and get me motivated when I watch your Instagram videos. And so keep doing what you do, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it,
just
man.
Don't have Steve Gregory on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, no more Steve. Sorry, Steve.
Sorry, Steve.
Real quick, and then I'll let you go. 3 questions. Final 3 questions that we ask everyone. And again, they kind of sum everything up, and I think we've kind of talked about it, and we can kind of you know, allude to some of these things here, but I always like to ask these because I really do think these tie everything together. First question is, who are your 3 biggest...
Steve Gregory.
Steve Gregory.
I love you,
all
Steve.
3, Steve.
Actually, the rest of the Gods hockey team would say Steve would be. They're surprised Caden is the name of my son. They thought it would be Steve. And then my daughter would be named Johnny after John Rethage. It was like Johnny, Aaron, Steve was going to be the first name. John Rethage, Aaron Hahn, Steve Gregory. But, yeah, so 3, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. But just 3 biggest influences. So again, they could be people, they could be entities, they could be groups or whatever, but just 3 people that throughout your life have really just, you know, inspired you or influenced you to continue to be better, continue to progress and all that.
Yeah, my mom is number one. That's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
She did the majority of the raising me with my two aunts, Aunt Barb and Aunt Odd. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe even sometimes bundle them up because they helped to raise us to be the people we are now. So that's number one. If you're going the hockey route, I'd have to mix three people together, honestly. My uncle Frank and his son, my cousin Brian, who were the reason that I am involved in hockey. You know, we'd have family gatherings or I'd go over to their house because I just wanted to be like my big cousin Brian,
Mm-hmm.
and hockey would be on the TV. And so that's when I started. He played ice hockey, so he wore a Letterman jacket. That's kind of what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle was my first actual coach, so I think they would have to kind of be bundled up there, and could throw Mario Lemieux in there too because I'm not so
Yeah.
sure we would have had TV on if Mario wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So maybe bundle those three up. And then right now, I would have to say currently it's just my two brothers, specifically my brother Brett. My brother Brett's battling cancer right now pretty hard. But we went through times in our life where we tortured each other like brothers tend to do, but a lot of times it was physical abuse, it was mental abuse where I was trying to fit in, I was trying to be the cool kid, so I would tease them and call them names, and I know it affected them now looking back, and I wish I could change all that, but I think it's also made us the people that we are today, so there's no necessarily regret. I just wish I wouldn't have hurt them. But Brett battling the cancer he's battling right now with brain cancer, and he's had multiple surgeries. He's going through a battle now, and being able to see him on his couch at home, not able to stand up on his own and use his arms and his shoulders and play with his son like I know he wants to do. That's motivation for me to try to become a better dad at home as well, because I know he's itching to do those things and to fight more than anything, because he's just been fighting cancer since 2015, and he hasn't gotten a good shake at all with it. But he's battling, and I think for that it's just a reminder of never to give up. And Jared, my brother Jared, always being there by both of our sides, whether it be in the hockey world and or watching over Brett on days that he's not working. So I'd have to put those two together as well. And you could throw my wife in there as well, because my wife, as I mentioned, she's the best type of support you could ever possibly ask for. Any emotional support and any kind of physical connection you need, my wife's there for.
Yeah, I feel that, man. Best of luck to Brett. I mean, got to keep fighting.
Yeah, he has no choice. He wants to see his son dance at his wedding.
Yeah.
So that's what he's fighting for.
Yeah.
He needs to keep that up.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are great influences, man. Again, got a lot of good people in your life. Gotta keep doing it, keep working. I definitely feel it. Second question is, from everything that we've talked about and just in general, what is your best overall advice? It could be hockey related, it could be life advice. You want to blend them, different things. But in general, like if you had to give somebody some good advice that has helped you in your life, what would you pass on?
Yeah, and I probably mentioned it a few times earlier today, and that is to don't let anyone tell you you can't. I mean, we use that regularly with our kids at school, and we'll use that regularly with our kids at home. And I try to fuel myself to don't ever let someone tell you you can't do it. Someone tells me that sport can't get to the Olympics, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it does get there, and I'm going to bring a lot of people along with me who also have that same passion, that same drive, because it's refusal to fail is what I really strive on every day, and it's brought us success on the hockey rink too. Don't let the other team outwork you, right? So it's kind of like a common theme everywhere we go, is just don't let the other team tell you you can't. Don't let someone tell you you can't.
I agree, man. That's it's definitely working. We're gonna prove them wrong with the hockey and everything like that. So that's it, man. Okay, last one isn't even really a question. It's kind of just promote, if you want to promote anything, like anything that you have going on, anything, the ball hockey world or anything like that. We'll have links and everything in the description in the show notes, but anything that you just want to kind of get out there. This is, I always want to make sure that anybody that, is, comes on the show, I want to give them ample opportunity to kind of, with anybody that watches our show, whether it's in the ball hockey community or anywhere else, just give some time to promote whatever you kind of have going on or things that you want to plug.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is, and probably the only thing I'll plug right now is USA Ball Hockey. I think that if a lot of people come up to us and say, how can we help out? Well, let us know how you can help out. What are you good at? Because we'll find a place for you. If you want to play, ask, and we'll direct you. If you want to help grow the game, we could talk about how you could do that too. So usaballhockey.com, info@usaballhockey.com. We'll go to our offices and then we'll answer any questions that you might have or guide you in the right direction from there. All the social media outlets for USA Ball Hockey as well. So, yeah, I mean, people talk the talk, but no one ever really walked the walk. And for people who've been around the sport specifically for several years, they've heard it. And I'm the type of guy that says, okay, well, now you're seeing it, because we're not just going to walk. We're not just going to talk. Rather, we're going to walk as well. And so come walk with us.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Well, like I said, everything's in the description on that. We'll make sure to include all the links and everything like that. Cory, this has been tremendous. I really appreciate you coming through. A lot of good stuff here. A lot of good stuff in ball hockey, what you're doing with schooling, the education of the third grade community and beyond there is just revolutionary with all that sort of stuff. I am happy to hear that. And, everything that you got going, the way you balance everything like that, that is just inspirational to say the least. So
Appreciate it.
I know that a lot of people that listen to this are going to find a lot of value. And again, I just thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. This has been a great time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Fueled by Progress with our guest, Cory Herschk. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you in the next one.